evening, or good morning, wherever you are. I'm Grace Strong from Lovington Books. I'm moderating the third Google Hangout session of the second annual fall edition of the Read for Pixels campaign. Through Read for Pixels, the Pixel Project is collaborating with 12 award-winning best-selling authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds towards the Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign, which aims to raise $1 million to be shared between the USA's National Coalition Against Domestic Violence and the Pixel Project to keep their efforts to end violence against women alive and kicking. We'll be telling you more about the Read for Pixels fundraiser, which has lots and lots of exclusive author goodies a little later in this session. And you can find out about the Pixel Project, visit thepixelproject.net. We have a very special guest, a reading followed by a live discussion and Q&A session with international best-selling author Kimberly Derting, author of The Body Finder and The Taking series. Kimberly has also generously donated a few fabulous goodies to the stash of author giveaways we have up as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels Indiegogo fundraising page, including a limited edition tote bag stuffed full of goodies, including signed hardcover copies of the first book in the Body Finder series, the first book in the Pledge series, and the full set of the Taking series, including the final book that's coming out next April. Plenty of swag such as nail polish and bracelets and posters, and a chance to be a minor character in her next book. There's also a chance for 1,000 words from your novel in progress to be critiqued by Kimberly. To nab one of the goodies, please give generously. All funds go towards the Pixel Project Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign to help end violence against women. Whew, that's a tongue twister. So now we go into the reading, I believe. Yes, we go into the reading.
Okay.
And oh my God, I can't see.
You want me to go ahead?
Oh my God, where did it go? I can't see you.
I can see you.
Okay, yeah. So now you read from The Taking.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to read from The Taking today. And the scene I'm going to read is actually, it's not at the beginning. It's actually a scene where the main character, Kira, realizes that she's in trouble and that the NSA is tracking her and her new boyfriend, Tyler. And so she's going off to try and get some help from her dad. So, Dad, I called out, dread snaking its way around my windpipe. I was terrified about what I might find on the other side of that door. Behind me, Tyler reached for my hand and every muscle in my body tensed. You stay here, he whispered, but I shook my head vehemently. I need to know. And even though my voice shook, I'd already made up my mind. I needed to see for myself if that was my dad's bloodied handprint, to know without a doubt if he was in there. Because if he was, it was all my fault. I reached out and pushed the door open. I went into a tiny bedroom that my dad had been using for 5 long years to track others like me, those who'd been taken. Once inside, I turned all the way around so I could see into every corner and every crevice of the tiny space. The small bedroom-turned office had been destroyed. Pictures had been ripped from the walls and were strewn around the desk and floors, some intact and some ripped to shreds. Same thing with the maps and charts. It was a state of shambles. But I didn't give a crap about any of that. All I cared about was that my dad wasn't there. He was gone. Where do you think he is? Tyler asked, and I jolted, nearly forgetting I wasn't alone. I knew, too, that I could no longer put Tyler at risk simply because I wanted his help. I'd already put him in too much danger. I shrugged and shook my head at the same time, hoping more than anything that my dad had managed to get someplace safe. Tyler held his hand out to me and I took it, our hands fitting seamlessly. The idea of leaving him was nearly unbearable, like losing a part of myself, something I understood all too well. As I let him pull me along, something in the wreckage caught my attention and I hesitated. Hold on a sec. I pulled my hand from Tyler's, reaching for the picture that was jumbled in with all the rest, a photograph. I bent down, brushing aside broken glass to pluck it free. Beneath the first photograph was another, and beneath those, another and another. I recognized all the images despite never having seen anything like them in real life. Fireflies. Picture after picture of fireflies. There were faraway images of swarms and incredibly detailed close-ups. Others were artistic, shots taken in the night sky making the fireflies look like stars against the black canvas of night. And others still that were clinically feeling and stark, in which you could make out each and every detail of the insects, right down to their delicate antennae and bulging round eyes. It was as if my dad had been studying the insects. At the bottom of the haphazard pile was an image I'd seen before. I hadn't made the connection between it and the nocturnal luminaries with their delicate vein-laced and swirl-tipped wings. My finger traced the image as I tried to recall the first time I'd seen it, the beetle-like version that depicted what a firefly looked like at rest and burnished in gold, just like it had been in the center of Agent Truman's badge. It hadn't been a golden beetle at all, it had been a firefly. My thoughts were interrupted when a single drop of blood fell onto the photo from above me. It landed right in the center of the picture and splattered outward, blooming like a flower. A feeling of icy alarm settled over me as I turned to glance over my shoulder. I'd half expected to find my father there with his bloodied hands outstretched to me. But it wasn't my father, it was Tyler, standing above me and studying the same images I was. Your nose, I let the picture flutter to the floor. Tyler, you're bleeding. He frowned at me before using the back of his hand to check for himself. You've got to be, he shook his head, perplexed. I haven't had a bloody nose since I was a kid. But I was already on my feet and running toward the bathroom, kicking litter out of my way. When I came back, I handed him a wad of toilet paper. I think you're supposed to lean your head back and pinch your nose. I think you're supposed to pinch it. He did as I said, and without taking the paper away, he dropped his gaze and grinned at me. So you're saying I'm not going to miraculously heal the way you did? I thought maybe some of your superpowers might rub off on me. I rolled my eyes, wondering how he could make a joke during a situation like this. It would be hard to leave him when the time came. They're not superpowers, I smirked back at him. He sounded ridiculous with all the toilet paper bunched up and plugging his nose. I grinned, and I'm pretty sure they don't work that way. I nudged him with my shoulder as I shoved past him back into my dad's room. I just want to grab a few things and then we need to get out of here before anyone catches us. I was hoping my dad would be here. I have so many questions, and I think he might have some of the answers I need. It felt strange to admit that out loud, that my dad had been right after all. I looked around the room at the ripped papers and broken glass. Even the computer monitor had been smashed. I couldn't bear to think that he might have been harmed because of me. I just hope he's okay. Me too, Tyler's voice came out of the muffled toilet paper. I began collecting what I could find, anything that looked remotely useful, although most of it looked like junk. I gathered the firefly images and a map with a bunch of colorful dots and lines my dad had drawn, along with one missing person flyer I couldn't ignore, the one of me. While I was searching, I found a ball from the first baseball team I'd ever been on, back when I was in the first grade, when the boys and girls still played together. Our parents had signed Austin and me up for the same team, and my dad had volunteered to be our coach. This was the very same ball Austin had hurled through my bedroom window after I'd accused him of throwing like a girl. His parents had grounded him for a whole week for breaking my window. One day for every year he'd been put alive on this earth. And for an entire week I'd regretted taunting him, because for 7 painfully long days I'd had to come home from school and play all by myself. I'd lost my best friend because I'd made fun of the way he threw. My dad, though, had saved the ball. He said it was one of his favorite mementos. I used to think he meant because it was from our first game, his as our coach and mine as a player. But now that I thought of it, I wonder if it was more than that. I wonder if it was because of the lesson I'd learned about how to treat those I cared about. My dad had always been big on the power of words and respect. The tongue pierces deeper than the spear, he'd told me when I'd complained about Austin's punishment. And even though I knew he was trying to teach me some sort of lesson, all I could remember thinking was that it was too bad it wasn't true. How cool would it be if our tongues really were spears? First graders thought of things like that, I guess. We better get moving, I told Tyler, putting the ball back. He had his own collection of things, and I praised his findings with a dubious eye. His nose had stopped bleeding, and his toilet paper compress was gone. What do you think, he asked, holding up a fanny pack by its strap. You think your dad would mind if I kept this? I made a face at him. How long had my dad been holding on to that relic? Are you kidding? You're not seriously planning to wear that thing, are you? You never know when you'll need it both hands free. He strapped it around his waist and started filling it with the things he'd gathered. Some newspaper and magazine clippings, a USB thumb drive that had been lying beneath the papers on the floor, and a CD with a handwritten 2009 to 2014 scrawled across it. This isn't a looting mission. He looked meaningfully at all the chunk in my hands. Are you sure about that? Here, I bet you can fit all your stuff in this thing. He held the pouch open for me. I am not letting my stuff touch that thing. My hands work just fine. You know your nerd status just shot up like 1,000,000 points, don't you? I didn't tell him the real reason I wasn't sharing space in his fanny pack, that I wasn't planning to go with him. And that's pretty much where I'll end.
I don't think I remember reading that scene, but I do remember like what she was talking about. Definitely, yeah. I think I read the book like 2 years ago, so it's quite long, I guess. And so do you just want to jump right into discussion questions?
Sure.
Okay, so the first question is my question, and it is, what kind of positive effect do you think female YA characters like Kira, Charlie, and Violet would have on young women who may face situations, including abusive relationships, that make them feel powerless?
I think the thing is that one of the things I really like in this scene, one of the things I like about Kira is she talks about how words hurt, how important it is to be nice to your friends. When, you know, she brings up that scene when she's little and she had said the mean thing to her best friend, Austin, hurting his feelings, and her dad brought up the point that his favorite memento was the baseball because it reminded him of that day when she used words against her friend. And I think the thing about strong characters in YA, especially with girl characters, is that there are all kinds of strengths. Like there are really super strong badass characters, which are awesome. I love reading about those characters, and I want my characters to be a little bit badass like that, physically strong. But there are also other kinds of strength. There's mental toughness, there's emotional strength, there's loyalty, there's persistence. You want girl characters to be relatable, and there are all kinds of strengths in women in real life, and so you need to be, as an author, I try and think of those things when I'm writing characters, because not all of us are, gonna go out and kick some ass when we go out into the world. We're not all gonna, pull out a sword and fight, ninjas, but a lot of us are emotionally strong or want to be emotionally strong, or a lot of us want to be really loyal friends. And so in the Body Finder, it was really important for me that Violet instead of having snarky friends that she couldn't stand and let her down, I really wanted her to have a strong core of girlfriends, because I think it's important for girls to have girlfriends to lean on. And so I wanted to show positive girlfriends, because there are so many books where the girlfriends are, backstabbing and conniving, and it doesn't work out as their friendship. And so I really like that. I want, as a mother, I teach my daughters how important it is to keep girlfriends close to you.
Yeah, definitely. So that leads into the next question, were you anything like any of your characters when you were their age? Like, did you have like those really awesome and just like close girlfriends?
In that sense, I do. I still have the same girlfriends. A lot of the same girlfriends that I had in high school are still my best friends today. That's awesome. Is probably why I like that. I like that strong sense of girlfriend friendship. I think girls build each other up, and I think they should build each other up rather than tear each other down. But as far as being like my characters, I think I wish I had been as confident as my characters are in my books. I always feel like, and I think it's common for teenage girls to feel uncertain. Even when girls are, look like they have it all on the outside, I think on the inside, those teen years tend to make us feel uncertain in different ways. And so I think I write characters that I would have liked to have been like. Violet, to me, she reminds me actually a lot of my older daughter, very grounded, very centered in the Body Finder. She's very level-headed. And I was never really level-headed. I was kind of, you know, wild and flighty, but I did have good, strong girlfriends to lean on.
That's awesome. And so do you think does your experience as a survivor of sexual abuse influence your stories?
I think I think it influences everything I do in general. In some ways, it's part of who I am as a survivor. I think really what it did for me as a child who did survive being molested, I really did turn to books as an escape when I was young. So I became a huge reader. Some of the first stories I wrote were actually very much focused on girls who were abused. And I think I used it as a really cathartic way to work out a lot of my issues. And I think really what it did for me was it became very much a culture for me of reading and writing as a way of escapism a little bit, but it also helped me work out a lot of issues. And I think anyone who's experienced not even just abuse or anything, I think all of those things as a writer influence your characters. Everything you are somehow seeps in, a little bit of you seeps into your work in different ways.
Yeah, and so we have a question from Elizabeth Christina, and she says, "Hi, I really love you, and when will the next continuation of the book be in Portuguese?" So I'm not sure if she's talking about The Body Finder or The Taking, but do you have books that have not been continued yet in Portuguese?
Yeah, I think she's probably Brazilian. It's Portuguese in Brazil.
Yeah.
Here in my eye. I think she could mean The Pledge or the Body Finder series, and I don't think either of those have been continued yet. The Body Finder, the first and the second one came out of Brazil, and I wish I had control over that. I honestly do. I would publish them everywhere, all the books, and I don't have an answer for that. It's really up to the publisher, and I think that publisher in Brazil is Editora Intrínseca, and it would really be up to them when it's going to be published. I wish I had a good answer for her.
Yeah.
We're
lucky in the US. And so, as an author, do you feel it's important for you to portray examples of healthy, respectful relationships in your novels between men and women and between women? I know you're talking about having really good girlfriends, but between like men and women, is that a different story?
I think it's actually, as an author, I feel like it's important to have all kinds of relationships portrayed, even unhealthy relationships, because even those relationships get people talking. I think when it comes to relationships that work, I really like in The Body Finder, Violet and Jay, I think are a great couple because they are a healthy teenage couple. They talk about things. They've been best friends since I think the first grade in the books. And he's kind of the boy that I would have liked either for myself as a teenager or the kind of boy that I would like my girls to date. Very level-headed, also very respectful, very sweet, kind of a good guy. He's like the all-American good guy kind of kid. But I also think that it's important to write the story that is wanting to be told. So I try as an author to not be too constrained by what I think is right in general for the public, but what makes sense for the story. And I do think, like I said, I think it's important to even write unhealthy people and unhealthy relationships in the sense that I think it does make conversations start. And I think it's, if everybody just wrote happy stories that were pure and fun and everybody was healthy, then there wouldn't be a lot of conversation to talk about. I think talking about things, having these conversations start is actually what makes people start to come forward. I think a lot of books that are issue books, and mine aren't necessarily issue books, of course, but I think a lot of good issue books are what make conversations start, and actually a lot of kids will step forward because of those books. And those are not healthy relationships.
Yeah, and would you think that the conversations are more essential to a book than the actual plot is, like the action that happens?
I think it probably depends on the book. I think, like I said, for issue books, I think conversations are hugely important. I think what happens outside of the book. But again, I'm a writer, so I like the plots and the storylines and the characters. And I think, obviously, the Body Finder series there's really no deep issues. It's really kind of a fun series to kind of give you the chills, maybe make you lock your door at night and check over your shoulders. But it's not necessarily going to start a conversation about abuse or violence against women in that sense. I think there are better authors who handle those topics.
And as you experience more in life, does anything make you want to change the plot or outcome of The Taking, or are you loyal to what you've written and wouldn't want to change a thing?
No, I'm not a big regret person, so I really think I'm loyal to what I've written so far. I do think the older I get, and I think you just evolve as a person. I think my next book is definitely going to be more contemporary and gritty, deal with a lot more issues. I just think as a person, I've moved into a different stage of my writing, and I don't like to write the same thing twice. Obviously, I have a series about a girl who can find dead bodies. I have a dystopic fantasy series with The Pledge, and then I have a kind of a light sci-fi series with The Taking. I tend to get bored and move on quickly. So now I'm, kind of exploring deeper issues and what kids are really dealing with in real life. And actually, this book I'm working on right now is actually a lot more what my childhood was like, and some people that I know around me, what their childhood was like, or teen years were like. So I think those books are important, equally important. And I think, like I said, I think having those conversations, I think books are a great place. Fiction is a great way to explore really deep issues and make it a safe place to explore them. And it changes conversations, it changes perceptions, it makes it okay to talk about before a lot of times people are comfortable even coming out and saying that these things are happening in my real life. I think sometimes fictional characters make it safe for them to say, oh my gosh, I read this book about this person that X happened to, and if X is happening in their life also, they feel a connection to that and feel like maybe there's somebody who understands them, and other people besides themselves, they don't feel so alone.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so, do you think there's like a book or books that have influenced your life the most?
There are so many. I'm such a broad reader. I read so many kinds of books. When I was in high school, some of my favorite books were The Color Purple and To Kill a Mockingbird, one of my all-time favorite books. And that was a book that dealt with, I read it every few years, and I never really thought about the fact that it deals with a lot of violence, because it's, centered around a rape trial in the South, and it's a lot of bigotry and hatred, and it was so ahead of its time, really, for what it was, because Harper Lee wrote about topics that were kind of taboo. Like I said, it made it kind of a safe area, but it was they were taboo topics a little bit, especially in the South. And that book hugely influenced me in the fact that I wanted to write about things, and obviously I don't necessarily yet, but I would love to write about things that are controversial and that make people start conversations and really delve into these issues.
Yeah.
Honestly, I grew up reading Stephen King and really scary books, and so if I'm really honest about what influenced me in my own personal writing, I was heavily influenced by horror, and so I like to be scared and to write about things that I'm afraid of.
That's awesome. And you're writing a contemporary next, you said?
Yes.
And would you like to tease on that, or the third book of the Taking trilogy? Because I'm definitely waiting, and other people are probably waiting as well.
I'm actually really excited about the third book in the Taking. I just finished it. It's called The Countdown. The title was released, I think, about 2 weeks ago. So we're counting down to the countdown, which is the dorkiest thing ever. But
has the cover been released yet?
The cover hasn't been released yet, and Harper does such a good job with covers that I've seen it. It's beautiful. It fits perfectly with the series. I'm very excited about the way it wrapped up. Trilogies are, I found, harder to wrap up than the Body Finder was easier because the books were serialized, and the trilogy was harder because I had so many questions to wrap up and loose ends to tie up, and but it came together really, really well, and I'm excited for it. It comes out in May.
Yeah, so you think trilogies are like harder to write than actual series?
I think for me, they're harder to write, maybe. I had a really hard time. I think one of the things that I dealt with, though, was when I finished the Body Finder. I finished the Body Finder series, which was 4 books, and I finished it the way I would like to have a series finished with. I tied up the big issues, but left some loose threads, some for people to kind of chew on a little bit. Like, I didn't answer every single question, and it's because when I finish a book or a series, I like to kind of think about what are these characters going to do next and what's going to happen. And what I found out is people don't like that. I get email all the time about the Body Finder and when's the next book, and was I really going to leave it like that? And I really did answer all the major questions. But there was just enough unfinished that readers really had a hard time with that. Also, I'm not opposed to ever writing another one, so I did leave a little room to write more if I decided to. So when I finished the Pledge trilogy, I made sure every single loose end was tied up. I did not want to get emails again. And then the same thing with the Taking, which had actually even more loose ends to tie up. And so it did take me a lot longer to write.
Did you like tie up the loose ends with like another loose end? Because I know some authors do that and like drives readers nuts.
No, I tied up everything so that it's just like tied so tight you probably couldn't unravel it and even try to write another book.
Great. Yeah, because oh my God, the books that end like mid-sentence just don't even get me started. Yeah, so our next question is, geek culture in general has had its share of critics saying that it's still too male-dominated, despite a rising number of well-respected and well-known female authors. What do you think needs to be done to make geek culture as a whole, whether it's comics or gaming books, more welcoming for women and girls?
This is a tough question because I don't feel, I guess I'm not one of those critics. I feel like I haven't felt that as much, that unwelcome feeling in geek culture. I guess because if I like something, I just jump in with both feet and don't care if I'm welcome or unwelcome. But I do understand that sense. I've talked to people who, you know, I think some of it is that the portrayal of women sometimes in the books and comics and graphic novels is that, you know, the women that are badass are, you know, they're fighting in swimsuits practically. They're wearing almost nothing, and so it makes it very sexualized. And I guess because I grew up and that was my take, it took me a long time to realize that wasn't actually always cool. But I think a lot of it is just having these conversations, and I think kids today are so much more savvy, don't you? I think in my generation we just kind of accepted that that's the way it was, and I think kids today really are having these conversations and challenging the culture. I have a 14-year-old daughter who is constantly butting heads against things that she doesn't think are right, and she embraces her geekiness. She absolutely. I said one day, "You're a geek," and she goes, "That is not an insult." And I said, "That is so funny because when I was growing up, you said that to somebody, and they, you know, you call them a nerd, and they're embarrassed by it." And she said, "You're complimenting me when you call me a nerd," and I love that. I love that kids today are embracing this whole culture and that they're challenging the norms and stereotypes. And I think that's what's going to change it. I think the conversations and saying that we don't accept that this is a male-dominated world, and I don't think it will be for long. I think there are so many smart girls now rising up to the top. You know,
Yeah, and they're all doing STEM, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's so amazing. I think it's just changing so rapidly in this world.
Yeah, and we also have Geek Girl Con in Seattle, which is like embracing like the inner geekiness in girls, which is also great.
I do.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of it, is making geek not a bad word, and I think girls are just really stepping up right now.
Yeah, definitely. And so we have a question from Regina, and it is, did you read To Set a Watchman, and what did you think? Does it affect the way you read To Kill a Mockingbird now? Wait, does it affect the way you read To Kill a Mockingbird now?
I was so looking forward to Go Set a Watchman, and when it finally came out, I made the conscious decision not to read it, and I did so not in protest of anything that Harper Lee may not have given consent. I don't know anything about, like, I wasn't there. I don't know what her consent level was in that. But what it really was is that when you have something on a pedestal like I do To Kill a Mockingbird, I was so afraid that I would be disappointed by the book. And I had heard some things that it was, that in it, Atticus was, it's set years later after To Kill a Mockingbird, and Scout comes back and to take care of her dad, and he's a racist now, and I just thought, I think I might be disappointed by this book, and it might change my opinion of To Kill a Mockingbird, which really is my #1 all-time favorite book, and so I just was afraid to read it. I think I'm too scared to.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really long time since I've read To Kill a Mockingbird, so I think I should probably read that again soon.
Great book. And I haven't read it in a while, too. It's been a few years. I read it usually every probably 5 years, and I really love it, but I think I'm just going to skip those. And I was so looking forward to it. When it was announced, I was thrilled. And then terrified after.
Yeah, and I know we were talking about how it was centered around violence, and so our next question is, one of the most important things that the movement to end violence against women and girls is focused on is changing cultural mindsets by working on ensuring the next generation grows up more and more agile, and less violent, is that spelled right? Is less violent than previous generations. As a mom, how do you think we can raise the next generation of boys and men to be respectful of women and girls?
I think this is a question that I deal with because I have a 22-year-old son. I have 2 daughters, and I also have a 22-year-old son. And I think the biggest thing is really it all starts around conversation. And I think the biggest thing is teaching our sons to respect women. And you can have all the conversations you want with your girls about respecting themselves, and that no means no, and where to draw the line, and everything about, like, you obviously have those conversations with your girls. You never stop having the conversations. It's never too young to start having the conversations, but you have to have them with the boys too, and teach boys to respect women. My son one time, when he was young, he was like 14 years old, and I got a call from a mom, and she said, "I'm so embarrassed to be giving you this call, to have to call you." And she said, "But my daughter, her 13-year-old daughter, my daughter sent your son some pictures on his phone." And I said, "You know what? We've already deleted them. We found them because we were checking his phone all the time." And I said, "We've already deleted them. They were underwear pictures." And I told my son that, I said, "What you need to be conscious of, things like this are going to happen. What you need to be aware of is that's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's sister. How would you feel if that was your sister and somebody was, you can't share the pictures. You just delete pictures like that off your phone. You never share them. This is not a joke. This is her life. And you need to be aware. You need to treat every girl as if that's your sister. And remember that that's somebody's daughter, and somebody loves that person."
Yeah, and sorry, the word was egalitarian. I couldn't see it because my screen was cutting it off, but
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely a good topic because at school I see like guys touching other girls' butts all the time and like sexually abusing them, and like that is definitely not okay. And I don't feel like boys are aware that they know that they need to stop doing that because that is not respectful at all. And I think people need to like know that because I definitely do think that these guys do not know that.
And I don't think they stop to think about what they're really doing, that they're dehumanizing the girls when they do that, that even touching them in, like when I was growing up, honestly, guys grabbed our butts all the time. Nobody said anything. It was supposed to be kind of no big deal, which it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And you just kind of like accepted that it happened, and it's not. Nobody should accept that. Girls shouldn't accept it, and it shouldn't. Other girls shouldn't. Nobody should touch anybody else inappropriately. Girls, boys. You know, I just read an article about school dress codes, and a woman teacher had snapped a student's bra, and I thought that is actually kind of like in class, and I thought she shouldn't have done that either. She's a woman, a grown woman should know better than to humiliate the girl for showing her bra strap, that the bra strap was showing in class. And her point was that the bra strap was showing and it was breaking dress code, and I thought that's humiliating also. We should, as women, again, be building each other up and protecting each other and having each other's backs, and as boys need to humanize girls. I think what happens is that culture dehumanizes, or pop culture tends to dehumanize the women and girls, again, like by sticking them in swimsuits and bras and panties and having them fight fights and, you know, show them kind of as not non-people, but non-equals.
Yeah, and my school just like banned yoga pants, and I feel like that's also dehumanizing as well, because when you tell girls that they can't like be comfortable with their bodies because they're being comfortable at school, isn't that like also just equally as bad as just like sexually abusing them? Because, you know, before maybe they were ashamed to wear something and instead they chose to wear yoga pants, but now they can't do that. And I feel like it's just so contradicting because they tell you to be confident, but then they don't let you wear something, and I feel like that's a little ridiculous, but I do understand where they're coming from because, you know, yoga pants emphasize your inappropriate body parts, and, you know, guys may be distracted, but I do think that their line should be drawn there.
Right. It is hard to know too. I asked a school administrator the question about why, because we were talking about my daughter. I have the 14-year-old daughter who challenges everything, and she was frustrated because they can't show shoulders.
Yeah.
He said, we asked the school administrator, and he said it's not anything that the girls are doing wrong. It's because boys are really just that, sometimes have that hard of a time concentrating. It's not really that they're worried the boys are going to do anything inappropriate. It's concentration problems. But again, why is that? It shouldn't necessarily be the onus of the girls to hold up the boys' concentration level. I get it. There has to be a line somewhere, and I guess that's where they have a hard time figuring out where to draw the line. But again, yeah, yoga pants is, I don't know, maybe a little.
Yeah, because a lot of people only own yoga pants. So what are they going to do when they run out of sweatpants and jeans to wear? Which, there's a really hard line to draw there. And so our last question on the list is, you have been so very incredibly supportive of our Read for Pixels campaign and our anti-violence against women work as a whole. And so why do you support the cause to end violence against women?
Again, I think as a mother, as a survivor of childhood abuse, when they came to me and asked me to support this cause, I jumped at it. But even more importantly, as a mother of 2 girls, this is a huge issue for me. I want my girls to feel safe in every environment. I want them to grow up in a world where they're not catcalled when they go down the street, or they're safe in their school environment. They're safe in any environment. Girls and women should be safe in life, and that any cause that gets this conversation going, I think is a great cause. Not even a valid cause, it's a great cause, and people should be behind it and support it. And anyone who feels that they're feeling threatened, feels threatened or has been threatened, it gives them a safe place to turn to.
Yeah, and we also have an observation from Regina saying that girls shouldn't be forced to police their clothes because boys can't concentrate. And I feel like, yeah, you can't like go to school in a crop top and like booty shorts, but I mean, a sweatshirt and yoga pants just because you woke up 10 minutes late, I don't think there should be a problem with that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think there has to be a line somewhere, but it seems like the line is set a little too far over on the girls' side.
Yeah, because if you look at like student handbooks, there are like paragraphs and pages of rules for girls, but there's like 2 sentences for guys. I mean, you can't sag and you can't wear muscle shirts, but they do that anyways and don't get caught. But I mean, if you wear like a tank top that's 3 fingers wide instead of 4 fingers wide, then you're dress coded. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah. And so, how do you think authors can take action to help stop the violence?
I think it really comes down to joining projects like the Pixel Project. This Read for Pixels campaign is a great campaign, and authors getting involved and talking about this. It's a huge opportunity for readers to see what's out there. I think sometimes people don't know that these projects are available for them, these resources are available for them. I think the other thing is by sharing our stories, getting out here and talking about our lives, the people we know, things that happen in life, so that people, again, feel like they have a comfortable place to turn. I think dealing with issues of violence or rape, or even just dealing with relationships in a very straightforward and healthy way. You know, like I said, I think unhealthy relationships are okay as long as it's meant to be used validly, and it moves the story ahead and it's a good conversation starter. But I think ultimately you have a responsibility in the sense that, you know, you don't want to have rape scenes just to have a rape scene for shock value. If you're going to have a rape scene in your book, you probably need to deal with it in a way that is a responsible, especially in young adult novels, I think. Mm-hmm. But I think it's not a gratuitous thing to have in your books. I think if it moves the story ahead and it's good for the character development, there are ways to handle it responsibly. And then, again, just these conversations.
Yeah, and you said you were like sexually abused. Do you think you have advice for like girls who have been but who are afraid to tell people about it?
Yeah, I think, man, this is so hard, because I think the best thing you can do is find somebody safe to talk to about it. It took me a long time. I was abused several times by several different men when I was young. And it took me years to come forward and talk about it. And it was very terrifying to talk about. But once I did start to talk, I actually went to my mom finally. And I was about 4 the first time it happened, and I didn't talk to my mom until I was 11. So I carried that around for 7 years.
Wow.
And once I unburdened myself with it, it was I felt so much lighter. It was such a good conversation to have. She felt horrible, but she helped me she helped me get counseling. And if you can't talk to your parents, there are places you can go see a school counselor. That's what they're there for. You can find, there are online resources. You can go to Rape Relief. There are all kinds of places you can go. And honestly, these people really want to help you.
Yeah, okay, so we are going to wrap this up now. And so, as mentioned earlier, Kimberly has generously donated a limited edition tote bag stuffed with full of goodies, including a signed hardcover of the first book in the Body Finder series, the first book in the Pledge series, and the full set of the Taking series, including the final book that's coming out next April, which is The Countdown, so countdown to the countdown, and plenty of swag such as special nail polish, bracelets, posters, etc., and a chance to be a minor character in her next book. And also there's a chance for 1,000 words from your novel in progress to be critiqued by Kimberly. So now we can switch. And so we are going to screen share this so that way you guys know which Indiegogo campaign to go to. Alrighty. And so you can donate to get these goodies at the link that's right on the screen. And if you only have PayPal and no credit card, you can also donate at the link that's below the first link. And you can get a set of exclusive Read for Pixels wallpapers for your laptop, tablet, and smartphone. If you want to learn more about Read for Pixels, go to the third link that is on the screen. And to find out more about violence against women and what you can do about it, visit the Pixel Project's website at thepixelproject.net. And once again, to find out more about the Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign, please visit reveal.thepixelproject.net to learn more about it. And please do donate generously to help us reveal pixels and raise $1 million for the cause. And right now we are about 40% through fundraising, and so if you go to the Indiegogo campaign, there's a video with all the authors, so be sure to check that out. And thank you, and have a good day or night wherever you are in the world. Goodbye.
Bye.